Today, we're going to get into a really powerful story. It's about the clash between what someone lives through every single day and this academic ideal of, dispassionate debate. On the surface, it's about a garden, but it's really about a quiet, simmering rage against a world that claims to be objective. So the story kicks off at this prestigious scholarship school where our narrator learns let's say, a very specific definition of objectivity. Right away, this sets up the whole conflict. It's not just some textbook term, it's a worldview that says the further away you are from a problem, the more qualified you are to talk about it. All right, so let's dive into that world. Part one really puts us in the narrator's classroom, a place that's totally governed by this cold, detached ideal. Okay, so picture this. It's the mid-1990s. And if you listen to the news or to politicians, you'd think the country was facing this one massive threat. And in her current events class, this threat was always there, haunting every single one of their supposedly balanced discussions. And there she is, the caricature of the welfare queen. I mean, this wasn't just some abstract political idea. It was a nasty, dehumanizing stereotype. This figure was painted as a monster, draining society dry, living it up on the public's dime. This was the fiction that was being debated as if it were fact. But for our narrator, this wasn't some distant concept you could just debate for an hour and then forget about. No, this was deeply, deeply personal. And here's where you see the huge disconnect. While her classmates, the children of doctors and lawyers, are earnestly debating how to dismantle the welfare state, the narrator's actual life is the very thing they're demonizing. Her reality was the subject of their objective, dispassionate arguments. I mean, can you imagine sitting in that room, listening to your entire existence being picked apart and condemned by people who have absolutely no clue? The narrator talks about this visceral physical reaction. It wasn't just intellectual disagreement. It was her body responding to being erased, a feeling she hadn't yet learned to call rage. So now we're going to leave that cold classroom behind and go to the narrator's home. And that's where we find the story's vibrant, beating heart, a garden of defiance. They lived in a housing project that, from the outside, almost looked middle class. But as she explains, everyone in that town knew which side of the street was which. There was this invisible line separating the real people from the people you were supposed to avoid. And this garden, it was so much more than a patch of dirt. Her mother planted it on this forgotten strip of lawn, a tiny act to reclaim a piece of the life they had before poverty hit. It was a defiant, beautiful symbol of hope and dignity in a place that was basically designed to crush both. And you know what? That hope, it was infectious. The neighborhood kids, seeing her mother out there every single day, they were drawn to it. The garden actually became a source of community, a little shared piece of life in a place that felt pretty barren otherwise. Just look at the incredible hidden effort that was going on. The narrator's mother was nothing like that lazy stereotype from class. She was a woman working full-time, going to grad school, raising 2 kids, all while secretly fighting like hell to find a way out. The garden was just one small part of her relentless struggle. But while her mother was outside being so defiant, the narrator was inside, feeling ashamed. She was a teenager, desperately trying to prove she didn't belong to the poverty that was all around her. So she adopted these quirky things: heavy shoes, overalls, niche music, anything that might signal she was smart, different, and most of all, objective, just like her classmates.
And this brings us to the story's turning point. The outside world, with all its cold rules and judgments, is about to come crashing down on this tiny sanctuary.
This chart really spells out the bureaucratic nightmare of poverty. The housing authority said her scholarships for grad school counted as income. They said she couldn't have a personal computer. I mean, every single rule was an impossible choice. Follow them and stay trapped, or break them and risk everything for the slightest chance of getting out. And then came the final ultimatum. The housing authority found out about the garden, this little plot of land bringing so much joy. It was against the rules, and the choice was just that stark, that brutal. And this is the whole point. Those earnest debates about welfare fraud and the grasping desperation of the undeserving poor could never ever capture this. They couldn't understand a system where planting flowers gets you threatened with eviction, a system that just throws one impossible, soul-crushing choice after another at a family.
Okay, in our final section, we're going to see what happened after that choice was made, and we'll see the narrator's profound internal shift.
Her mother gave in. She had to. She stopped tending the garden, and then a maintenance worker came and just quietly, efficiently poured poison on the soil. Killed everything. The cherry tomatoes, the cucumbers, the marigolds. That little symbol of hope was just extinguished. So when the narrator went back to school that fall, the conversation had just moved on. Poverty wasn't news anymore. For her classmates, it was just another topic, debated and then discarded. But for her, it was a fresh, gaping wound. And here it is, the big realization. That shaking she'd felt in her gut all year, it finally had a name. It was rage. Pure rage that her life was a topic for discussion. Rage that her mother's dignity was treated as disposable. A rage so enormous, it made her voice feel small. Because how could you possibly speak with all that weight inside you? So back at school, surrounded by all this wealth and privilege, she would walk past these enormous, beautiful floral arrangements in the main office every day. Such a stark, almost cruel contrast to the poisoned patch of dirt she called home. And in this quiet, secret act of rebellion, she finally found an outlet. Every morning, she'd sneak a hand under the leaves and just snap the heads off the flowers, crushing the petals in her fist until they smelled of roses. It was a small act of destruction, a way of lashing out at a world that had so carelessly destroyed something beautiful in hers. And that really leaves us with this final, crucial question. This whole story forces us to look at the limits of so-called objectivity. When we prioritize a detached debate over the messy, emotional, powerful truth of someone's actual life, what are we really sacrificing? What gets destroyed in that process? And what, if anything, is left in its place?